Hi, I'm Chris Barano, founder of Your Purpose is Your Power. What you're about to hear is the first part of a conversation I had with Kambiz Nafisi earlier this year. Kambiz has helped thousands of people worldwide heal from traumas, addictions, and self-limiting beliefs. Kambiz uses a unique combination of Kriya Yoga and reprogramming the subconscious. While you won't see me in the interview, I wanted to personally introduce this as what Kambi shares is a powerful catalyst for personal transformation in any area of life. Can you take us back to your childhood in Iran? What was home like?
So I was born in Tehran, Iran, in the early 50s. The family was a very old family, kind of an aristocratic family. I was surrounded by government ministers and ambassadors and people in the royal court. So one of my issues was I couldn't find any role models, people who were artistically, spiritually inclined. And during my teenagehood, that caused some problems because I looked around, everybody was an ambassador or a senator or something, and I couldn't find somebody who was like me. So I couldn't digest the fact that I was an oddball within that family. And that caused me to mistrust my own nature. And the fact that I mistrusted my own nature and got too far away from my own heart, that actually set me up to become a healer later on because I had to heal my own self-doubt about who I was and my own spiritual artistic nature. The society was very Islamic, so like women were second-class citizens. A lot of times they had to cover themselves even during the Shah's time. Our family was not religious, but we were surrounded by a religious society. So you could tell that women always had to be careful not to expose their skin or their hair. You could see that in the environment. It's plain to see.
Was there any element of spirituality among your relatives, even your friends, families, that kind of thing? When were you first introduced to spirituality and then alternative spirituality?
Right. Spirituality is very much part of Persian culture because Iran and Persia, they're known for their poets, their poetry, poets like Rumi, Hafiz. So Persian poetry is very spiritual poetry. There's a lot of verses pointing towards the God force and Allah, God. And so that's nothing foreign to the Persian culture. You grow up with it. Now, in terms of a metaphysical, yogic type of God, I was not exposed to any of that until my early 30s when I started to seek spirituality through yoga metaphysics, the concept of God as an energy field that is made of consciousness instead of an angry, white bearded man hovering above the clouds. That I started to get exposure towards in my early 30s.
So you were in New York at that time.
Yes, yes. And I quit my Wall Street job. I was very alienated from myself because, because I doubted my own spiritual artistic nature. I headed towards the Ivy League schools, finished Columbia University, entered Wall Street. And one day I woke up in my Italian suit and I was just very alienated from my own artistic spiritual nature. So I just divorced my life.
Was there a moment that you can remember where you had to decide, I'm taking a different route in life?
I would call it the dark night of the soul. It was one particular day in the bank. I had just had it. I was miserable in a 9 to 5 job. I didn't really identify with the bankers around me. I had a different nature. So one day, without a job, I just went into the vice president's office, handed my resignation in. This was in Manhattan. I really thought I'd be dead the following day because it was an expensive lifestyle that I was leading. And I quit without a job. It was the dark night of the soul because I knew I had to end that life, but the next Kambiz, the next person to be, was nowhere to be seen. So what happens is you resign, without knowing who you're going to be afterwards or what your job is going to be. My whole education was in business. I had no education in spirituality. So that was probably the darkest afternoon of my life, was walking into that VP's office and resigning without a job.
So what happened? What was the next step?
The next day I woke up, expensive apartment. I knew I had to give up the apartment very quickly. I found a friend who lent me an apartment for a month. And then I heard about Maharishi International University in Fairfield, Iowa. And there they taught spirituality. In Fairfield, they taught the Vedic style of Indian style of spirituality. And you could go there and volunteer for a part-time job and learn Maharishi's spiritual teachings. You could meditate 7 hours a day in their dome. And so I just gave up the banking job, moved out to Fairfield, Iowa. It was very different from Manhattan. And I got $14 a month for volunteering, sweeping floors, helping out with office chores. And there, I had a chance to meditate hours and hours per day and study Maharishi's videos about the soul, about higher consciousness, about how to quiet the mind. And that lasted for a whole 2 years.
Is that where you were first exposed to Kriya Yoga?
So in Southeast Iowa at Maharishi University, we were only taught TM because Maharishi Yogi brought transcendental meditation to the US. So his clan were practicing a mantra-based meditation called transcendental meditation. In mantra meditation, you repeat a mantra over and over again, and your mind becomes bedazzled by the sound and the frequency of that mantra. Something like Om, 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 or Shring, Shring, Shring. And that's effective because the mantra starts to take the place of any potential negative thinking. If you think of your mind as a parking space or lots of parking spaces, what happens is repetition of the mantras start to take up the parking spaces that used to be taken up by negative thoughts. So in that sense, mantra meditation is very effective. Also, the mantra has a vibration like Om. That vibration starts to vibrate within your body and your energy centers. And that vibration takes you in deeper a lot more quickly. Later on, after Fairfield, Iowa, I started visiting India intermittently for about a 15-year period. During one of those trips, I was reading a book by Paramahansa Yogananda called Autobiography of a Yogi. Somebody in a tea house in India said, if you're reading this book here, you should follow me to the next block and take a left. So he took me to the hut where Paramahansa Yogananda's own guru had lived. And so he said, go and enter that place. That is a place of Kriya Yoga. And Kriya Yoga is a breathing science going back to 1800 years ago. The founder was Kriya Babaji Nagaraj. And Kriya Yoga, instead of focusing on a mantra, it focuses on breath coming in and bringing in a life force called prana. Prana is something more subtle, more invisible than oxygen, and it comes in with every inhalation. So in Kriya Yoga, you manage the intake and the distribution of an invisible life force called prana. The Japanese call it ki, the Chinese call it chi. And it's not oxygen that's keeping you alive, it's prana, the life force, that's keeping you alive. So when you die, prana leaves your body, oxygen doesn't.